Welcome to the 2 Acre Homestead podcast. We're your host, Lisa.
And Kevin.
And on today's episode, we are talking about how to move a homestead. So let's get started. Welcome to the 2 Acre Homestead. Come along with us on our journey from a small suburban homestead lifestyle to our new lifestyle, homesteading in the rural countryside of southern Arizona. We'll share with you our tips, tricks, successes, and failures from both our past suburban lifestyle to our new rural lifestyle, all on the 2 Acre Homestead. Welcome back. Kevin, how are you doing?
I guess I'm holding up.
That's good. So am I. Well, this is a really large topic that we're going to try to condense in a short amount of time. But before we get into that, I did want to address a question that I thought just really segued perfectly into this conversation. And it was an email that a listener had sent me, and I am keeping this person's name and most of what they put here in the email, the particulars, I'm keeping that to myself for their privacy's sake. But I think the concept of the question is really great. And basically, this person is interested in moving to the state of Arizona. And I'm just going to make up a number. They're looking at buying about 80 acres. And, I'm not going to say how much it's for, but their question was, any thoughts in particular on the St. John's area when it comes to homesteading, and what should I look for when purchasing land for homesteading? I thought this was just a really good question because a lot of people are looking to move from the country or from the cities into the country. And we decided that I would be the one to answer this question directly. And that is because of my work background. And for many of you, I don't know if you know, this is probably my first time saying this here on the podcast, but I used to be a branch manager for a mortgage company. And my specialty as a branch manager was land acquisitions. So I focused mostly on doing loans for people and companies buying land. So I do have some experience when it comes to that. And we have traveled to the St. John's area. We even vacation sometimes in Show Low. And we just did last year, as a matter of fact. And to answer your question directly, listener, there is a very strong homesteading community there in St. John's. There's a lot of people. It's very, very spread out, but there are a lot of people, a significant amount of people who do homestead. And I think it's just by nature of that area because it's so spread out. But you will definitely find homesteading support in that area. Just keep in mind the weather. It does snow up there. But one of the things I do want to tell you, and this is not because I come from this industry, but it's just for your protection. When you're looking at the amount of land that you're thinking about purchasing, which is a significant amount, it's a good amount of land. As a professional, I would say, please, please, please seek the advice of a real estate agent. But keep in mind, not all real estate agents have specialties. For example, when I was doing mortgages, I could do a home loan just like any other loan officer could. But my specialty was land, and not any loan officer could just pick up where I left off doing land, vice versa. I say it that way so that you know that not all real estate agents focus on land. Not all real estate agents know what a homesteader needs, what they're looking for. We joke around, Kevin, you and I, that an acre is not an acre. So you can have 50 acres, but if, 40 of those acres is sloped rocky land and you want to have sheep and cattle and, a nice head of cattle and everything, that may not be the right property for you. So these are things that you want to look for when you're looking for a real estate agent. Don't be afraid to interview your real estate agent. I think a lot of people miss that. They just think, oh, I'll just pick any real estate agent. Or people think, oh, real estate agents, they're just glorified home showers. No, they're not. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes that you don't see. And in the industry, the mortgage industry and the real estate industry, we are trained not to tell you about. We just don't. Because I can tell you one thing. If I told you how close some deals were to not making it, if I told those people how close some deals were to not making it, it would make the hair stand on the back of their neck. People would have a heart attack. So there's a lot of things that they just don't say behind the scenes, and there's a lot of knowledge there that's behind the scenes. Certainly you want to educate yourself. Like we said, an acre is not an acre. Walk the land. Know what your land looks like. Know what the weather is there. Know what your neighbors are like. Get to know your neighbors. So do all of your physical research and then, interview your real estate agent. And if your real estate agent has experience in purchasing land for either farmland or homesteading land, go through with it. That would be my first piece of advice. My second piece of advice, and this is really directly for the person who wrote this in, you are looking at buying land in the state of Arizona. This is not political, but this is just a fact. Water is an issue in the state of Arizona. So if your real estate agent is worth anything, they will know that. And they will know that water rights is a hot issue right now, and that's something that you should be aware of if you're moving from out of state, from another state here to Arizona. There is a town here in Arizona that just got its water cut off. And that's because of the Colorado River being dried up and a whole bunch of other stuff going on. There's another city here in southern Arizona that just closed off everybody. They voted to close off everybody's water rights. Homesteaders, farmers, anybody and everybody. No one has water rights there. What that means is if you're on a well, you can be charged. They can cut you off. They can say, you know what? Yeah, you're on a well, but you can't use the water anymore. So know your rights, know your water rights here in the state of Arizona. And basically, do your due diligence, and hopefully everything goes well with your purchase. We wish you the best here.
Yeah, that was a good question. Really interesting. So, as we get more into this topic, we're talking about how to move a homestead. This season, we're talking about a lot of how-tos, right? One thing that I think came to mind, kind of based on our experiences, the time of year that you move. So how about this? Move off season. What do you think about that?
Well, no, there's really, on a homestead, there's really no off season.
Well, but hold your horses. Yeah. I mean, there's, you got to think about the calendar. You got to think about, from a planning perspective, right?
Yeah, that's true.
What kinds of things go on during the calendar year? For example, start with gardening, right?
Mm-hmm.
When, we talk about know your growing zone. I think we talked about that in the last episode, right? So, here, what we're, not planting into the ground until at least mid-March, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then it closes off when October, right?
Yeah, October 15.
October, right? So you got to think about this. There's a time to start, getting ready to plant, sow seeds and so on. But then there's a time to harvest. So based on that, you got to think about this. Then when is the best time for you to move? Is it going to be in the middle of when all that stuff is growing? What do you think about that?
Well, I was just thinking that moving in the fall has been our experience that it's been the best time, because the fall, everything kind of, the gardens are shutting down. You're not, if you move into a new place in the fall, you're not going to be rushing out there to go plant a garden or go set up your gardens, because the weather is starting to turn, it's starting to get cooler. And the nice thing about it is that gives you time to focus on the inside of your house, move in, get settled, put up some artwork, paint your walls, get the flow of your kitchen, because let's face it, the flow of your kitchen is important. And it takes time to get that down. So, getting all that stuff going. And then it also affords you the opportunity to see what the land looks like when it's.
I was thinking that same thing. Get the, not just to see the land, but you got to think about those things like we've talked about this. Where do the shadows fall? Are there outbuildings that you have that are going to potentially throw shadows down, where you're thinking of maybe potentially putting that garden or greenhouse or whatever it is? Where does the water run off? Does it collect? How does the land slope? Those types of things, right? So the more you study that, you get that better idea. So you find a better ideal area for the garden. And maybe, if you have animals, the chickens and so on, and these different things, you can really plan that better.
Right. I do have to say, one of the things we say often on this podcast, I think it's in our intro, is that we plan on sharing with you guys our tips, tricks, successes, and failures. And I have to say, we have now moved homesteads 3 times. And, I really have to say this last time was probably the biggest of the failures I felt. And the reason why the time of year that we moved was great because it was in the fall, but it was the timing of trying to time out how to close the gardens at our old homestead and getting everything wrapped up there.
Yeah, we were talking about putting a potato clause into the contract, right? Because we had potatoes
we did
that were going to be ready for harvest, but it was almost going to be after we moved, right?
It was sweet potatoes, actually. And so the contract for our house, I think they started purchasing our old house in August, was it? So, I mean, that's like right at the heart of sweet potato season. So, but the point is that I know as the mom and the cook, the person, who primarily does all of those things in our house, I went from a gardening situation where I could pretty much garden all year round where we lived before, to this new homestead where we are currently, and you cannot garden all year round here. So it was really a difficult thing for me to try to figure out how to store everything, how to can everything up mid-season, and then move everything, and realized that I didn't have enough stored up in the pantry to make that move so that we could continue eating off of the things that we grew. That just wasn't going to happen. And so I had to rely on the grocery store. That was the hardest thing for me to swallow. So if I had to go backwards in time and talk to myself, I would have said, at the beginning of the gardening season, instead of, harvesting things and, just fresh eating out of the gardens, which is what we were accustomed to doing since we've been homesteading. Instead of doing that, just take everything and, can it, dehydrate it and can it and dehydrate and freeze things. That's what I would have done. Instead of, concentrating more on the fresh eating.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you looking to build a homestead from the ground up? Or maybe you're looking to build an off-grid dream home, a vacation home, or maybe just a piece of land to call your own. Visit yourcheapland.com to buy rural land in the wide open spaces of southwestern United States. When you visit yourcheapland.com, they're here to help you, and with their help, you can do this. You can take your dream of owning land and make it a reality. Most down payments are only $294, including the document fee. Remember, everyone qualifies for financing at yourcheapland.com. Head on over to yourcheapland.com and start making those dreams come true. And now, back to our podcast.
Yeah. And then as someone who takes care of animals on the homestead, it makes me think of, how do you move animals? So there's some things that come into play there. I think the main thing to really think about is where you're moving. Does that property have the right infrastructure in place before you move or before you buy animals that you're going to put onto that homestead? Not that we're speaking from experience or anything.
Oh, no,
but
we're not. Yeah.
But
we've done it. We know everybody's going to do it,
right.
But you're going to be guilty of, buying that precious animal, whatever it is, a cow, sheep, goats, and you may not have all the infrastructure.
Right. And I think I've said that on more than one occasion. Infrastructure. That's got to be there first before you, for the first time or another time or whatever, before you get that animal or those animals, that herd or that flock or whatever. Right.
Right.
So, here's something to think about, how far are you moving from where you're at to where you're going?
Mm-hmm.
So you have a flock, you have livestock or whatever it is. Is it going to be practical for you to move said flock or that livestock and whatnot? If you're moving a state or several states away, is it going to be practical? Do you have the means to do that? And then you got to think of all the other things that you're moving as well and whatnot. And then the infrastructure and so on. So if the infrastructure was in place, is it going to be practical for you to move hours away, days away, if it's a, trip by truck and trailer or whatnot? So those are some things to think about as well. But, you can plan, you can have things in place that you can move with you. Like, do you have an extra supply of things like welded wire, woven wire, T-posts, those types of things, because you can put up a temporary structure depending on what type of animals, you're dealing with and so on.
And that makes sense because if you're moving, we're talking about moving a homestead. So this is on the premise that you're already homesteading wherever you are, probably in the suburbs. You're going to have, no matter what you do, you're going to have some extra stuff like that. Like you said, the T-posts, the woven wire, you're going to have extra stakes and stuff. Don't just let that stuff convey with your house that you're selling. take that stuff with you.
Right. And, as you're doing those projects, right, do buy extra because it does come in handy. So that way, when it comes to something like that, a move or whatnot, you'll be prepared. And, keeping some infrastructure, that's a really good thing that'll help you to be able to have that. So you'll be prepared, wherever you're moving. Another thing that goes along with that is, do you have the tools, the equipment, or even the skills that you need to scale up? Now, I'm saying that if you're, let's say, coming from, the neighborhood tract homes, and now you're getting into, let's say, buying acreage, you're moving to a grander scale. So do you have those tools? An example, being in Arizona, let's say you have the tract home and you have what do they call it? Xeriscape. You have rocks. You don't have a lawn, right? You have that kind of thing, maybe except for your garden area, but you don't have a lawn. So now you're moving to an acreage and you've got maybe a lawn and field. So, okay, now I need to buy a lawnmower. Oh, wait, no, I need to buy a riding lawnmower, and what size, and so on. So those are some things to think about as well. And of course, the last couple of years, there have been issues from time to time with being able to get those types of things. But those are things to think about too, as far as planning.
0 turn radius. That's all I have to say. And if
go.
you know, you know. And
if you don't,
you don't.
There you go. And then skills too. So I think, for us moving to a bigger property, having the little battery operated, weed trimmer just didn't work here. So, getting something that's really more suited to something for this size area. And then besides talking about tools and so on, skills, right? If you are not used to this is something that you might need to be prepared for as far as skills. If you're in the city and you move to the country, what are you going to run into? Predators, probably a lot more so, than you did in the past. So how do you protect your homestead from predators? Here in Arizona, we have snakes of different sizes, let's just say.
We have all kinds of
We
snakes.
have all kinds.
And especially rattlesnakes.
So
it's pretty scary.
Yes. We've had some of the smaller ones like the garden snakes and so on, but rattlesnakes. King snakes, yeah. The smaller ones. But, that's been a good learning experience too. So you've got to educate yourself. What do you do? Are there tools or whatnot that you need to get, skills that you need to develop to be able to protect yourself, your family, your animals, your livestock, and so on? And along with that, then when it comes to things like livestock, how do you properly set up your fencing to protect them from predators, right?
Super important.
So, I can't speak to every single different kind of landscape, even here in the United States. But just as an example, we've had to deal with coyotes in the area.
Oh, we have them right in back of us. Yeah.
So they can jump.
And they come on property all the time.
They can jump even, a 4-foot fence, 5-foot fence, 6-foot fence, and whatnot. So that's not going to do it. But if you have multiple layers of fencing, for example, like if you have, think of like a box and then a bigger box around it, those coyotes will look at that and say, oh, I'm not going to do that because it's too much.
Worth it.
So, things like that. And that's a way you can help protect your family and your livestock and so on.
And then the financial cushion. You need to be able to have the finances to scale up.
Right.
So if you're just moving on to a property, this goes back to, if you're buying a property cash, this, this applies to you as well. If you're, getting a loan for, a mortgage for your property, this applies to you as well. But you need to have some cushion. So if you're getting a mortgage, for example, for your next property, make sure that the sale of your current existing home gives you some cushion. So that way, not all of your money is being put into the new property, into your down payment for your new property. Give yourself some cushion when you are scaling up.
Yeah.
Either have it already in the bank or make that happen in the transaction.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to your real estate agent, primarily talk to your lender about that if you're going the route of a mortgage loan. Because if you don't have, you may have the perfect property, but if you don't have the financial means to get all of the equipment, to get that 0 turn radius, that 0 turn radius lawnmower, or you don't have the ability to, put up fencing, whatever type of fencing that you need for your property, for your situation, you don't have the financial means to do that. It's going to be very difficult to do things the right way. You're going to always be in this cycle of broke, fix, broke, fix, broke, fix. And eventually that's just going to make you run out of money even more.
Mm-hmm. And something that goes along with the financial cushion and so on too is, I know we really learned a lot from hearing experiences of other homesteaders that really made an impact on us too. And that's get out of debt.
Oh, goodness.
Avoid getting into debt where you can. Sometimes it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes maybe you see for a short period of time, you can do it, but then pay it off right away. But the more you can do that, the more you have available when it comes to something like that. You move and then, oh, okay, so I know what are riding mowers, or at least 2,000 or whatnot, right? So, there's equipment or whatever. If you're moving to a property where there's no fencing, mm-hmm. and you've got animals and so on, so that's going to be something that if you have to hire somebody, unless you're going to do it yourself, there's going to be some costs involved, and you might need to do boom, 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 a few things right away, right? So basically, the less, if you can get out of a car payment or car payments,
right.
Get out of the $10, $15 coffee. What do coffees cost? I don't know. We don't really do
we don't,
$5.
We do
anymore.
The free coffee at home.
The free coffee, right? Mostly, yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Get out of the eating out,
mm-hmm.
right? Besides the fact that food's not good for you anyway, but the more you do that, you have more available, and that will help you to be able to put into your homestead. So,
right. And just to clarify, when we talk about debt, we're talking about the car payments, credit cards, student loans, other personal loans, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Get out of that stuff
mm-hmm.
as soon as you possibly can.
Yep.
Mortgage loan, that may be something that you have to have. But,
mm-hmm.
And that's for each and every, I know Dave Ramsey is not going to approve of what I'm saying, but, that's for each and every person to decide,
mm-hmm.
on your own. But by all means, do whatever you can to get out of those unnecessary debts.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I know he talks about things like a debt snowball and so
mm-hmm.
on, but
which is great. That helped us out.
Yeah, it helped us out.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can look at pay the highest interest or whatever, but
mm-hmm.
you just attack something. And then once you pay it off, you go, oh, I have that much extra months. So you take that and you put it toward the next thing. And
yeah, it's awesome. Mm-hmm.
Before you know it. So it feels good. And then it's freeing. And then, you have those resources available. So
mm-hmm.
I think that's a good tip too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, that is it. I think that's it, right? That's it for us.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but like we said, we'll be getting to more more how-tos this season.
Exactly. And just so the listeners know, we will be getting into this topic that this listener had written in. We'll be getting into that in a lot more detail as we go through the season. We've got some interesting interviews coming up for you guys, so we're super excited about that. And one of those interviews has to do everything with this question that this person wrote in.
Sounds good. Yeah. So again, we are so thankful that you took the time to listen to us.
Mm-hmm. Be
sure to visit our website, the2acrehomestead.com. Check out our link there for YouTube and the Instagram. And as always,
Stay safe out there and happy homesteading.